remember always seeing people like, oh, I saw that guy do this. I saw this guy do that. Why is he back in a cattle call? Once you make it on Broadway, you made it. And you just bounced from show to show to show. It was like a private club. Once you got in that club, it was like, yes. Because everyone always used to say, oh, he's got a Broadway credit. Well, he has a Broadway credit. He has a Broadway credit. So I was like, if I can get that Broadway credit, I'll be set.
I got in Butterfly when I was very young. And then when that ended, I did not work again on Broadway for 12 years.
There aren't very many actors who can have, a steady career working exclusively in Broadway. In the 1960s, when there were 20 musicals in a season, an actor could go from show to show to show. It wouldn't be unusual to do 4 Broadway shows in a season. We just don't have that anymore. It's just a completely different model.
You may have a good streak for a while, and then you may run cold for a while, right? It's been 9 weeks since Spider-Man closed, and that was 3.5 years, and I've just been going through a myriad of emotions from lying in the darkened apartment on the couch with the covers just going, oh, is an audition gonna come, and to like going, oh, people would love to have time off and have a staycation and do whatever they want and get unemployment and have some money in the bank, and they'd love to do that, and then work doesn't define me and work defines me, and this whole thing of how to deal with it when you're not working.
I think that's how we get bogged down by it, is by that making our entire lives our career, which is hard because if it's something you like to do, you want to do it. It's not like you go to your 9 to 5 and put it away.
It's great. Last time I saw you in December, and the first thing I say, hey, you in a show right now?
No.
But it's so instinctive, isn't it?
It's instinctive. And you're like, oh, are you still blah, blah, blah? And,
But especially if you don't have, a spouse, if you don't have a pet, if you don't, all those other things. I'm so lonely. No, if you don't have those other things, a child that takes you out of yourself, you do have this little thing that runs 24/7 that's always analyzing, well, how am I doing? How am I fitting in? Yeah. Anything coming up? How's the money situation? God, is there anything else I can do? Instead of just kind of, knowing that indeed, okay, it's all right. Just breathe and enjoy your time off if you can, and be prepared for when the auditions do come. But it's, sometimes it's just you're starting to...
It's so hard for actors, because their opportunities for earning can be so great and so varied. And, the ups and downs in your financial situation are enormous, from, having a good Broadway salary to having a 0 salary for sometimes quite a while. And yet, the need, the desire, the commitment to being an actor remains. And that moves me, because the rewards of life that most of us enjoy have not been part of that person's life, and yet they still need to do it. It's moving.
Segueing out of college, it was strange because I was a baby-faced character guy, so I always thought I'm going to be in my 50s before I start really landing things, which has turned out to be the case. That's a quarter of a century, 25 years that I, slogged through the trenches, had some really great highs and some low lows. If you can imagine being in your mid-40s and having 35 cents in your pocket and no money in your bank account and going across the street to buy a couple packages of top ramen for dinner, and that's pretty much going to use up your money, and not, you're going to wait for the catering check and hopefully to show up in the next day or two. Here we are in a small apartment when many of my friends and peers have big houses, they have spouses, they have children. I don't have those things. Living in New York, I don't even have a car. Sometimes that's an asset, I don't have to worry about those things or those material things. I put my priorities into my career. To keep going, it takes effort. You constantly have to work at it. it's a job. It's not just going out there and performing. The backside of it is to stay relevant. You have to keep plugging away. Right now, I'm pretty happy. I'm auditioning for these people that I know about, that I've seen their shows, that I've listened to their music, and it's like I'm getting a chance to be in a room and show them what I do. I mean, I find that pretty satisfying. To have slogged through decades to get there and knowing that you wanted decades ago to be there, it still pops into my head. I thank Gary from high school. I thank my mother that drove me all around for my clown act. I literally, it's not passing thoughts. Those thoughts are literally in my mind, and I think there's Times Square and I go, this is my office. It still moves me, It still means something to me to be a part of this community, to be a part of the legend of New York theater and Broadway. I may have not made it. I may not be a household word. And as a character actor, you may never be. I'm a journeyman actor. I probably always will be. And, I just keep plugging away and doing my best job. And I'm here.
It's been interesting. I think my own struggles, I've had great highs and I've had great lows. I feel very blessed. I feel like I've had a very blessed career and I've had incredible opportunities. But I've fallen on my face, a gamillion times. And you can let the noise of your own critic beat you down, the noise of the literal critic, the people saying no, or you suck, or I suck, and it can force you to stop. I remember after, I think it was Little Women, I was like, I want to work at a pet store. And I was serious because I just didn't think I could handle it anymore. And I was like, geez, this is ridiculous. I'm obsessive and I have no balance in my life. So I really took great pains and 9 years of therapy to really find balance in my life. And so that I want my life and my friendships and my relationships and my relationship with my dog and my family, I want all of those things to be more important than any job that I have. And suddenly that made my work better. But balance is the key to a happy life, no matter what you do, but especially as a performer, because if we base the value of who we are as a human being on the applause, we will always be disappointed.
If you want Fun Home tickets and don't take me, that's not a big deal. One of the things that I've really learned in this business is everyone's got their own story. Everybody comes from a different place. And I learned probably a few years ago to stop comparing myself to everyone. I used to compare myself to people that were my age. I need to be doing what this guy's doing, or, this person's won a Tony Award. Am I gonna win a Tony Award? And you start getting all uptight. Once you realize you're on your own track and your story is completely different from everybody else's, and you can let go of what everybody else is doing and celebrate what everybody's doing, it's like, oh yeah, okay. So you put everything in perspective of who you are as a person and keep that's your deal. And try not to get so anxious about, well, I'm not here. I should be here. No, I should be right where I am. And it's cool. It's really hard to be right where you are when you're not working and you're looking for side work and you're in your late 30s and you've been on Broadway and you've been on national tours and you're like, oh my God, I gotta get a side job to keep going. That's hard.
I really do believe that everything happens for a reason, and people come into your lives, jobs come into your lives. It's supposed to happen the way that it happens. My audition for Les Mis, I think I went in for Les Mis twice, and then all of a sudden, click. I'm packing up my stuff and going on the road. And when I first got the tour, I was only gonna stay for a year. And then once you realize the money and the cushion that you can actually have, you kind of want to stay out and you have fun. I gave myself 2 years. Life after tour is different. My agents were dropping me, and I was going to chorus calls and EPAs. And then I got a call from Les Mis. They wanted to know if I could come to Broadway for like 6 weeks and sub. So I was like, okay. That was my Broadway debut. Then they offered me to be the universal swing for both companies. So it was just back and forth, and it was awesome. I did that for 4 years. But then after that, life in New York was really hard. Les Mis was closed on tour and on Broadway, so I didn't have that backbone anymore. So I ended up getting a job at this catering company. And it was a really difficult couple years. I'll never forget, it was a Tuesday morning, and I was walking to work, and I sit down at my desk, and I got a phone call at like 9 o'clock in the morning from my mom, and my brother was missing. My relationship with my brother was an interesting relationship, actually. We were very close, but extreme opposites. I was very outgoing and, kind of the center of attention all the time. And he was sort of, sat back and watched a little bit. My brother had to work really, really hard to excel at football, at wrestling. He tried theater and just tone deaf and just very difficult living in his big sister's shadow. My brother had some issues, and so in that moment when my mom called, we had sent police and we couldn't find him. It was a crazy morning, and so I literally looked at my boss and was like, I have to go. That day, we found out that my brother had died at 29 years old. And when I found out that he had passed, it's like your whole world falls apart. I'm sort of I try to keep my whole family happy and together. And I felt just so out of control at that time. The thought of auditioning just made me nauseous, and the thought of just putting on that face and trying to be somebody that I wasn't, and happy-go-lucky sort of musical theater stuff, I just couldn't do. I literally was gonna throw in the towel and move back to Cleveland and be with my family. New York was just so overwhelming that I have to go away. And so I spent some time in Cleveland, not a long time, maybe a couple weeks. But then I came back here and just sort of started putting the pieces back together. I had auditioned for Wicked actually back in the day when I was doing Les Mis, and they had told me that I was right for this one track, and as soon as it came open, they would call me to do that, and blah, 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 blah. So after years of not being able to even get an audition, I got a call from Wicked about 7 months after my brother had passed, and they offered it to me. I truly believe that Wicked saved my life, saved my career, saved everything about who I was as a performer and who I was as a person. Knowing that I have this guardian angel watching over me, and knowing that he was so proud of everything I ever did, and he knew that Wicked was sort of in the cards for me. I don't need to move back to Cleveland. I need to be in New York, doing what I love to do, being with creative people around me at all times.